Since gaming was first invented with classics like Stare into Try Bonfire and Chase After Animal Until It Passes Out from Exhaustion, one game has managed to stay relevant for nearly 1,500 years. Chess, the hit, open-source, turn-based, competitive strategy game with hundreds of millions of players worldwide, available on the App Store, Google Play Store, wood, plastic, metal, cloth, paper. Use code Ilyx to get 500 free chess coins. But what I really want to know is when's the next update dropping? I mean, the last content update was 500 years ago with the Queen and Bishop buff. The Rise of the Robots update was pretty good, but the AI opponents are definitely too OP. Even the top pro players are unable to beat them. And the stalemate bug still hasn't been fixed. I think they're even calling it a feature now. The lack of communication from the chess devs is making me think, is Chess 2 coming soon? Well, let's take a look at the game's update log and see if it's truly done with development. For those who have never played, here's a quick tutorial. The goal of chess is to put the opponent's king in a position where it is actively being attacked and has no way to avoid that attack. This is called checkmate. To accomplish this, you duel the other player using the 6 playable classes, each of which has a different moveset and captures pieces in various ways. To protect your king, you can also castle, putting the king in a much safer position. The weakest piece, the pawn, can also be promoted to a queen, which is the strongest piece, upon it reaching the opposite end of the board. Other rules include en passant, the 50-move rule, and threefold repetition. Games end in a win, loss, or draw, which is usually the result of a stalemate when no legal moves can be made. So the pre-alpha of chess was developed in 6th century India. Back then, it went by the codename Chaturanga, which meant 4 parts and represented the game's 4 main playable classes: pawns, elephants, chariots, and horses. The game was played on an 8x8 board called an Ashtapada, but Chaturanga may have been a mod since the board looks like it could be used for other games. There's a bunch of stories on how the game supposedly came into existence and who the designers are, but those are all probably fanfiction. The real origins, inspirations, and developers of the game are unknown. But this is the first definitive version. Development of the game continued to spread to Persia, where it was renamed to Shatranj. Then the Islamic conquest of Persia came and it got another name change, now being called Shatranj. However, this alpha version had several key differences. Pieces were less powerful, castling did not exist, en passant did not exist, and a counselor existed instead of a queen, whose moveset was even weaker than the king. However, development of the rook and knight were finished, since they work the same way they do now. Pawns also worked mostly the same, except they didn't move 2 spaces on their first move. That would be added later. There was also a Chaturanga modding community to the east over in China, where they created Jiangxi. The modders decided to do a bit of much needed map design and added a river and palaces. It also spread to Japan, where they decided the game wasn't complex enough, so they added a bunch of new features and created shogi. Shogi features a larger 9x9 board, the ability to bring back pieces from the dead, additional promotions, and more playable characters. There were some earlier beta versions of shogi too, such as Dai Shogi, which had a 15x15 board and featured such pieces as the Drunk Elephant, Lion, Phoenix, Dragon King, which is also in regular shogi, and of course, Cat Sword. If you put an anime art style onto it, added some dialogue, you'd have a pretty solid Fire Emblem spin-off. It is truly the Dark Souls of post-Heian Japanese chess variants. Actually, that's not even true, since they also made a 36x36 variant. Back with the chess dev team out west, things were doing pretty good. The alpha got more popular with the spread of Islam, strategy guides were being published, there were some pro players, but there was also some controversy over the game's use of idolatry. Islam forbids idolatry, so one quick hotfix and graphics update later, the designers changed up the models of the pieces to comply with Islamic law, making them more abstract. And then after that, the controversy was basically over. As long as there's no gambling, so no chess loot boxes sadly. Through the spread of Islam, Shatranj ended up in Spain, and subsequently the rest of Europe. Here is where development would be finished, and its full release would take place. The first thing that needed to be done for the game's new European audience was to change up some of the pieces. The abstract shapes patch was removed since it wasn't necessary under Christianity, so pieces became more realistic and representational. Also, they got rid of elephants. Europeans all thought elephants looked like this, so they turned them into bishops. Quite a strange change, but if my only exposure to elephants were these demonic-looking images, I'd also replace them with priests. Then the counselor was changed to a queen, but only in name, since this was pre-queen buff. Its moveset at the time only allowed it to move 1 space diagonally. The board got its textures updated too, with the addition of checkered squares, which made pieces easier to track. The name of the game was also changed again, but that name would vary depending on what server you were playing in. In English, it was called chess. Europeans loved the game. Kings were playing it, queens were playing it. It was even listed as a necessary skill a knight must acquire. Some guy even wrote a crazy chess fanfiction that used chess as an allegory for the social structure of Europe at the time. It got so famous that its popularity supposedly rivaled the Bible. Yeah, you heard me right. A chess fanfiction rivaled Bible sales. However, the game was still pretty slow since the bishop and queen were still weak pieces. There were some chess DLC out at the time that expanded on the game through additional pieces and moves, but none really took off like the main game. During the 15th century though, one of the greatest chess updates came out. The bishop and queen buff. Previously, these pieces were very weak, with the rook being the most OP piece. The bishop was given the ability to move indefinitely in any direction, and the queen was given the powers of both the rook and the new bishop. The power of the queen was likely inspired by strong queens around at the time, such as Isabella of Castile, a powerful queen who ruled over Spain with King Ferdinand. It is said that she herself was a gamer and played chess, thus the update may have even been a tribute to her. The changes to these pieces made for a much faster, interesting, and intense game. Pawns were also changed to allow them to move 2 spaces on the first move, speeding up the game even more. However, this led to a glitch where you could avoid being captured by enemy pawns through this new feature. While great for an any percent run, it had to be patched, so the en passant rule was added, allowing captures on a pawn that moved 2 spaces as if it had only moved 1. Also, castling was added, allowing the king a better way to defend itself. Castling was based on an earlier feature known as the King's Leap, and variations of castling existed in Europe at the time, but this method would finally be the one added to the game. These new updates spread through Europe faster than ever due to the invention of the printing press, which also allowed the printing of tutorials and strategy guides, such as the ones by Rui Lopez and Joaquino Greco. At this point, chess was in its full release. Some small competitive tournaments were being held, pro players had a gaming cafe they would all meet up at, and one of the first real chess metas took place, the Romantic meta. This meta emphasized open positions, quick tactical maneuvers, sacrifices, and style. Perhaps the most famous Romantic player was Paul Morphy, an American chess player born in New Orleans. From a young age, Morphy showed much potential to become a great chess player. And he did, beating every great chess player in New Orleans by the age of 13. Meanwhile, all he wanted to do was study Louisiana Civil Code and do law. Seeing as he was too young to practice law, he decided to swap to the EU server, since that's where all the good players were. After arriving, he proceeded to destroy a bunch of chess masters, except Howard Staunton because he was too scared of Morphy, and the Duke of Brunswick. Now in his early 20s and renowned as the greatest chess player in the world, it appeared Morphy had an incredible chess career ahead of him. So he quit chess and started a failure of a law career, never going back to serious chess play ever again. Then he took a bath and died of a stroke at 47, probably because God wanted to play him. The Romantic meta eventually died off. Players such as Wilhelm Steinitz promoted positional and scientific play, ending the Romantic era of chess. Also, a bunch of these Russian guys just created the Soviet Union. They like chess. I wonder what they're gonna... Yeah, so it turned out the Soviets really liked chess. Equipment was pretty cheap, tournaments were easy to set up, and they could use it to prove intellectual superiority. Chess spread throughout the Soviet Union, becoming a hallmark of their culture, and as a result, fostered many of the world's strongest chess players. Now, the Cold War was going on too, and America has this one good chess player named Bobby Fischer, so maybe they could duel it out in a chess game and see who the better country was. But it's just one guy. What's he gonna do up against the Soviet chess machine? So a match was set up between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky, the current world champion. And oh my god, Bobby won! He really showed those tankies was... Wait, Bobby. Wait, stop! Yeah, so Bobby went crazy, the Soviets got their title back, Anyway, there are these guys trying to data mine the chess source code, thinking they can use it to create a bot that plays chess for them. There's no way. Computers can't think. They aren't smart. World champion Garry Kasparov has just lost to a robot. How are you gonna lose? Yeah, so that's sort of where we're at with chess now. Chess robots are even bigger and more terrifying. No new updates, but the modding community is pretty active, the speedrunning community is pretty active, and the competitive scene is thriving. Listen, all I want at this point is a new DLC, word from the devs, or maybe, hear me out, chess story mode. I mean, look at all these pieces, there's gotta be some official lore. I don't want to read another Rook X Knight fanfiction to get my fix of chess lore. Now on the topic of chess 2, I don't know if it's coming out. Seems like development of chess 1 is finished, and if you're bored, you could just play one of the many mods out there. The game is balanced pretty well, it's fairly easy to learn, and it's not pay to win. So chess, I'd say like an 8 out of 10, pretty good, but please nerf robots.